Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mrs. Darshana Yadav, Assistant Professor MES IMCC. Would like to welcome you all for third session of online FDP on Artificial Intelligence for Education, hosted by IMCC. Few words about IMCC. IMCC is a premier management institute which is recognized by Savitribai Phule Pune University, SPPU, and AICT New Delhi to conduct MCA program. Our MCA program is accredited by National Board of Accreditation (NBA). IMCC is recognized PhD research center under the Faculty of Commerce and Management SPPU. We do have MBA, BBA, BBA CA, and BBA IB courses. The total student strength on campus is around 1000. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to introduce you today's eminent speaker of this session, Mr. Niranjan Pedanekar. He is a principal scientist at Tata Research Development and Design Center, Tata Consultancy Services. He has extensive experience in application of data sciences and AI for domains such as entertainment, education, social media, financial services, railroads, manufacturing, defense, and IT systems, and has international publications and patents to his credit. He currently heads the Media, Entertainment, and Advertising Research area at TCS Research. Niranjan sir holds a master's degree in mechanical engineering from Purdue University, USA. He is also interested in art and entertainment related activities such as theater, music, and poetry. As a playwright, he has written, adapted, or translated 17 plays in Marathi, Hindi, and English, and has also directed some of his plays. He is the 2018 recipient of the prestigious Tendulkar Dubey Fellowship, awarded annually to five theatre artists chosen from all over the country. Today, he will be delivering his session on transforming learning experiences. With this introduction, I invite Niranjan Pednekar sir to deliver his talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I think um, I'm very happy to be here with IMCC and with all of you. And I've been to IMCC for various reasons in the past. And it's always a pleasure to be around. And let's see what we can talk about today. Please feel free to ask any kind of questions that you have later, and I'll try my best to answer the way I can. So as I said, I'm Niranjan Pednekar. Now I'll ask you the questions which are typically asked in every session these days. One, can you see my presentation? And two, am I audible?
Yes.
So I assume that I am audible, and I also assume that the presentation can be seen.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me quickly try and change the title for you a bit. It said transforming learning experiences, and by that title it might mean that, oh, actually I have transformed learning experiences, but it's more like my experiments with the transforming learning experiences. And as I go through the talk, you would know a bit more about what these experiments were and how did they pan out. I work as a principal scientist in TCS Research, and I also happen to be, as uh, described earlier, uh, a theater person. And I have done several plays of various types and at various levels. And I really like to be in theater. And that's why the data science background that I have and all the kind of research background that I have, I always try to use it in my theater experiences. So there are experiments there also. Every play is an experiment, every process is an experiment, and whatever you have from science, like whatever you learn in AI, certain type of techniques or any kind of scientific techniques that you have, you try to use them in theater as well. So I have been consistently trying to do that. And a culmination of that was a talk which was delivered last year in November. So it's been about a year for that. So that was at TEDxVIT Pune. And it talked about my experiments with using all sorts of science in arts, which is theater essentially. And if you have time, please do go and check it out later. But I'm glad to say that I was also able to do the other way around. Like I could take theater and arts and films and music and so on and bring it to my work. How was that possible? Is because TCS research has these kind of research areas in their corporate research. And you can see that some of these areas are pretty known to you. But the latest area was started by me, and it is called media and advertising. And yeah, that was started around 1.5 years ago. Uh, and that's where I am right now. So a lot of my work right now is to do with media and advertising and things like multimodal analysis of videos, of audio, of text, books, and so on and so forth. So now you must be thinking, what am I going to do talking about education? So there are a couple of thin threads that I have with education. One is that when I talk about media and entertainment and advertising as an area, it relates to the business group that we have within TCS, which deals with communications, which is telecom essentially, media, which is media, entertainment, advertising, and information. The information part of it is actually education related. Uh, all the education related customers that we have, people like Wiley, Pearson, and all these guys who do stuff in education, they're all customers of TCS. And some of the work that we do, though a lot of it is in media, is related to them. And as of now, also, we are doing some work. So probably I won't be able to talk about it right now. But the point is that we are related to education in one way or the other. The other part is more important. Before I took up media and entertainment, because I loved theater, I loved music, I loved movies, etc. I always wanted to bring them together with science and bring them together with AI, data sciences, and so on. I was able to do that about a few years ago and establish a group related to media. But before that, for about about 4 odd years, I was working. I had started a group called Past Learning in TCS Research. Past learning meant personalized, augmented, scalable, and sticky learning. That's what it stood for. So, can the content that you have be tailored to individual learners? The content might remain the same, but can it be tailored to individual learners? Can the content augment the current authorized content, as we call it? Can the content be coming from anywhere and everywhere so that you always have information and content to show, and you're not limited by scale of the whole operation? And can the content really remain with people? Can it engage people, and so on? So our general objective was to increase engagement, increase understanding of learners, and get learners to spend more time on learning. And that's why we looked a lot at learning experiences and how can we change the learning experiences. Now, we have to remember that most of the work that I'm going to talk about is from 2013 to 2016, around that period. And yet you might find that all this is relevant even now. In fact, it is even more relevant now, and we are getting a lot of inquiries right now. Uh, Whatever work you had done in the past, can you just give it to us? And there is an ask for something like that, and so on. So suddenly it has become much more relevant than it was before. So that's how I'm related to education, is what I wanted to prove to you. Uh, at that time, when we looked at learning experiences, the first thing that we looked at is, okay, the learner always gets the same kind of education and the same kind of educational material. Uh, and this had been quite popular till then, that everyone is a different type of a learner, everyone learns in a different way, and you can tailor your learning to individuals and so on. And around the same time, or even before that, this book had come, A New Age of Innovation by C.K. Prahlad, and it talked about personalizing experiences and making the resources global. As in, every experience that you give, the single user is in the center. It's not like a bunch of users, but one single user is in the center. So that's one part. And the resources that you consume in order to give to that user, they are now global. They are sort of globally outsourced. They are everywhere. They can be taken from anywhere. So that was an era where all these walls had sort of uh, burst, and there was free flow of information from here and there. And that's how you suddenly had a lot of material to uh, use if you wanted to, if the internet was sort of open to you. And you could use a lot of material. So the globe was your resource, is what we started with. And therefore, we asked whether the student can take the center stage in a data-driven way, albeit, but whether the student can be at the center. We started thinking about this and looking at this, and then we hit upon other companies doing stuff like this. For example, you might know about Newton. Newton has been acquired by, it was acquired by Pearson earlier, now it has been acquired by Wiley. And the thing about Newton was that they designed different uh, content, and they linked that content together in graphs, as they call it. And then they let people go through graphs according to their own ways of learning and so on. And they examined how they assessed how people were doing. And accordingly, uh, they sort of recommended the path. So this was there even then. So Newton started in 2008, but it was not very popular. It was not being used uh, a lot. Today, if you see, Byju's is also doing the same thing. Byju's also has this kind of a knowledge graph, and it's from a Byju ad only, that you're doing well in natural numbers, but you have not done well with number zero. So maybe you need to redo it and so on. Now that you have natural numbers, you need to go to somewhere else and so on. So they recommend the path that you take. But because at that time, this was relatively uh, still taking shape, we wondered what we could do for Indian students, especially. And when you talk about Indian students, this was there. Say, for example, if they wanted to know about something, they would go to the internet. They would fire a query, security certificate, for example, in IT, if you think about it, or what is proxy, or how does a router work, and so on. They would fire these queries at different times and get this knowledge. But a knowledge map linking all these was not available to them. So if you just put together these concepts, they did not necessarily know how these concepts come together. And that's where, for most Indian learners, they had always been following a map, albeit linear, in the form of textbooks. Textbooks are very important in the Indian context. They have, in general, been very important, especially in the K-12 type of learning. But afterwards, also, textbooks are important. Like, you need some basis, which actually gives you a path. You are not randomly finding out about concepts. The concepts are linked together in some way. But the other problem is that the textbooks are the same for everyone. The textbooks, I can't have a different textbook and you can't have a different textbook, because the textbook actually is published and it remains the same. So we just thought about, could we personalize textbooks in some way? Uh, uh, I was, I think, visiting Cambridge or something, and this thing came to my mind that if I wanted to, if I land up in Cambridge and I'm new to that place, if I wanted to just look around and see places around, etc., Google Maps was quickly in a position to give me um, the nearest restaurants, the places to watch, and so on and so forth. And that was good. But let's say if I were in a medical emergency, what would it do? It could probably easily give me uh, the places like hospitals nearby, doctors nearby. It could also probably, if there were an emergency, it could fetch locations of ambulances nearby. It could show me the shortest route. Why was this possible? They were not really doing it. I'm just saying that this was possible for Google, because why it was possible was they were taking this data from various places, and they were putting that data on top of uh, a reference, which is the map, the geographical map. The map is not going to change, but what you show on top of that map can change. And therefore, by mixing and matching these layers of information on top of a map, you can probably produce an experience which is perhaps more personalized. Could we do that? Is what we thought. And that's where we came up with this concept of augmenting learning material and using it for personalization. How could we do that? So this is the current scenario, that there are instructors, there are learners, there is some content which is, we'll call it base content. And this base content is sort of standard, and this is sort of specified as like use this textbook because this is really nice. Sometimes it could be use these notes because that will give you a lot of marks and so on. So content is there, which is supposed to be base content. So what we could do is we could extract concepts from this content. What is the content trying to teach? For example, if it were history, let's go to K-12. If it were history, what could be these concepts? The concepts in history are things like events or people or places and so on. Some examples are given here. Then we could use these concepts and we go around several resources which are open resources all over the internet. They could be anything, they could be a variety of resources. And then we arrange these resources in such a way in something called layers, which are meaningful abstractions of information which are suitable for learning. So, what could be the layers that we can imagine for something like history? There could be a timeline, because timelines are not readily available. In textbooks, also, they are not readily available. But you want to actually imagine how things happen one after the other. There could be things like causes of and effects of events, or there could be perspectives, historical perspectives. Like you having that knowledge from textbook is good, but what does someone else say about that? Can you get multiple perspectives for knowing more about that event? And then things such as art and culture and so on, which makes things more interesting. You can imagine a lot of other things now, like virtual walkthroughs through places and so on. So these could be the layers. What we tried doing is automatically populate these layers, because automatic was important, because we want to do this at scale. Otherwise, someone would sit there and sit down and just generate a variety of such content, or link a variety of such content. That's something that we didn't want to do. So that's where we came up with this idea of PUSTACK, and it combines PUSTAK, which is book, and the concept of stacking layers on top of the information. So PUSTACK we called it. These were the augmented personalized textbooks. I'll show you a quick video of how they worked. And we tried doing them for digital content as well as physical content. So on the right, you can see a picture where a person is sitting in front of the laptop, which has a webcam. And as the person flips through the pages, the kind of concepts which are there on that page, they get highlighted. So the left hand side, you can see those. And for any of those concepts, the kind of layers which are available, layers of information, layers of knowledge, they are shown here on top. For example, this is the timeline layer which has been shown here for a concept called Shivaji. I'll show you a quick example of this. So here's a video of how you use Pustak. So this was an NCERT history textbook, for example. What we have done is taken a PDF, done all sorts of concept extraction from it, and those concepts are seen there. So, for example, Babur was a concept here. You can look at Babur and then look at all these layers which have been populated. So this was, for example, a slideshow layer. There could be a layer of videos, there could be a layer of images, there could be a layer of arts and culture, and so on. A simple layer such as Wikipedia. All these things could be there, and a layer such as timeline. Now, what we tried doing is that when we had such types of layers, so these are the types of layers, how do we use it for personalization? So one thing is that you can let people use it, and then let some of them get used more and more, and therefore you try to promote those layers more. Or in the discovery mode, you give random layers to people so that they discover knowledge as they go on. Or you can even do, like, one thing that we tried is run personality tests, such as the test where you do Myers-Briggs personality test, for example. And according to that, group people, and these people will get different types of layers. So sort of a thinking person will get different types of layers, and so on. So in some literature, we found what kind of content is good for what kind of people, and so on. So that's how we could personalize. So we had a means of personalization through layers, because you could mix and match them. And we had a means of populating all these layers automatically. And that's how our the PUSTACK and layers concept worked. So we had done this first for history, and it seemed to work nicely, and people were interested in learning and so on. And the in the small experiments that we did, the outcome was good. We thought that shall we also look at stuff which is more related to higher education or college education? And then we started thinking of other things, such as, say, for example, physics. Can we also do this for science or computer science? So we imagined again layers for physics. What could these layers be? For example, again, something like explanations or animations, videos, images are the normal layers. Like one can think about this, like explanation would probably require some intelligence to automatically find explanations using natural language processing and so on, and showing there. Whereas something like image, you could do a Google image query and then just have some sort of sanity check on top of the results that you obtain to only retain the best of the stuff. So that's what we tried. And computer science, and now this was because this was related to TCS more, we imagined a bunch of layers on computer science. And while we were doing that, we came across certain type of things. Like, say, for example, if I were to write code, what would be the additional material that I'll need while reading about a particular concept? Or if I were to troubleshoot something, a code that has been written, what would I need? And here is where we thought of this concept called perspectives. Uh, Generally, the most common perspective that has been operational in India is the examinee perspective, like you really work for an examination. But let's assume there are other perspectives as well. For example, there could be a perspective of a person who wants to code. There could be a perspective of a person who wants to appear for an interview. There could be a perspective of a person who has problems and who has problems in implementing things, has queries about that, and so on. There is a system builder's perspective. There is a perspective of someone who just wants to visually understand what is going on. Uh, there could be a theoretical perspective, give me more mathematical stuff. And there could be stuff such as, I want to know about the history of this thing, how these things came about, and culture and history related things, even associated with concepts in sciences and even computer science. So that's what we thought, that these were the perspectives that a learner could take. So these were the hats which were being worn by the learner. So we called it hats. And what hats would have is there would be some base content again. We would extract the concepts which were being taught. And some of these perspectives we would expose to the person who is learning. So, for example, a programmer's perspective, a historian's perspective, a job seeker's perspective, a troubleshooter's perspective, a visualizer's perspective, and so on. I'll just show you a quick demonstration of that. That here is the book, and here is the interface of this, and you're reading Quicksort. There are two things which are there: Quicksort and divide and conquer algorithm, which have been found in this particular page. So now you go to a programmer's thing. Implementation in all language is what has been suggested. Very quickly, you can go to a place from this the theoretical perspective to implementation. If someone's interested in how it came about, here is history of Quicksort, and all this has been populated without any manual intervention, by the way. You're writing code and now you have some trouble, and generally queries that come to your mind. Sorry, this is an interviewer's perspective. So these are Quicksort multiple choice questions or interview questions. This is the troubleshooter's perspective, where you actually want to, you have queries and you want to find answers to those queries. So something like Stack Overflow is a very powerful mechanism for doing that. These days, GitHub would be very important for the first one, the code perspective. And then there are some animations and so on that you find out in terms of uh, making these things known. And that's how you go on each page. Now, on each page, there would be different types of concepts and so on. So this was hats, and this also we tried doing in TCS training. We tried using some of this stuff where people were learning something. Can they be directly taken to code, and can they be directly taken to stuff such as troubleshooting? And that also was interesting in terms of people's response of using that. But by that time, we know that online courses were there. That time they were called MOOCs, massively online open courses. And these days it is online learning in a way. I mean, it's not only MOOCs online learning, there are many other things, but MOOCs were the primary things. Like you could take Andrew Ng's class and class from Stanford on Coursera, and you could really be good at learning machine learning, for example. So it started then, it had started already. And so we thought of MOOCs also as being actually base content, which is base authorized content, just like textbooks. So could we do the same things for MOOCs? So this is what we found out. So one thing that we found out was that one needed to find what parts of MOOCs were required more, say, augmentation with such different content, and what parts were okay. Because while you're watching MOOC, you're not going to do a lot of back and forth. You will do back and forth only if you have the only if you want to say get into break that rhythm and get somewhere else, which is not the case with textbooks to that extent. Textbook is pretty much at your own pace. And that's where we thought that if we wanted to optimize the kind of augmentation that we want to do on that MOOC lecture. So let's say there is a half an hour MOOC lecture, and there are several MOOC lectures in that entire course, several lectures constituting a single course. What could we do? So we thought of this idea of augmentation need for MOOCs. What are the concepts which we glean out of the transcripts that we have for MOOCs? Some of them had transcripts, some of them we had to generate using speech recognition. And for a lot of MOOCs, we could get pretty good transcripts and pretty good speech recognition. For some of them, we didn't get good, say, concept detection, and that's why we left those. But for many of them, we got a good idea of where what concepts were being discussed. Then we looked at three things. One is progress. As you keep on progressing through the course, you take the first lecture, second lecture, third lecture. As you keep on going through the course, your familiarity with things anyway increases. So progress is important. Then the importance of that particular concept in that particular lecture is also to be seen. If it is very important in a particular lecture, then it has to be paid more attention. If it is occurring in perhaps every particular every lecture, then it's a more basic concept and it has to be paid attention earlier only, and so on. So progress and family importance are in a way related. And then there is this thing with notion called global familiarity. Something like bit is known to everyone. So a concept like bit appears in some of the, I think this is a system architecture course. Concept like bit appears there. Most people just know about bit, studying at that level. But something like pipelining, for example, is not that familiar to people till they take the course. And therefore, this red line, the brown undulations that you see here and here are the places where uh, the need for augmentation is more than a certain threshold. And those are the places where we will augment that concept. For something like bit, we need not augment that concept anywhere, almost anywhere. Maybe first we can give some interesting stuff here related to bit, but we need not augment it. So that's how we found what were the concepts which were important for the whole course, such as these, for example. In the first week, these concepts are important. In the second week, as you can see, these concepts are important, which are given here. And as you progress, different concepts started becoming important. And therefore, different type of augmentation was needed to them. So the greener this is, the more the augmentation need. So in other words, for this particular lecture, all this each one of this uh, is a lecture. So for register file, the concept, this is the first lecture, this is the second lecture, third lecture, and so on. All these squares, little squares. So wherever it is green, it means that you need some help with that. And the greener it is, the more help is required, and so on. So we thought that this was an interesting thing to do with MOOCs. And also we could replicate the same with textbooks as well. But for MOOCs, it was more important because your attention is on completing the course in a particular uh, at a particular pace. We also looked at how people could choose between MOOCs, how using the same kind of data that we were generating about the MOOCs by studying the content. For example, these are four courses, online courses. One is practical machine learning, big data, core concepts in data analysis, and machine learning, which is a course by Andrew Ng. Big data is a course by Dr. Gautam Shroff, who is the head of TCS research. So if we looked at these, can we easily make a choice? Can a learner easily make a choice? And can a learner easily navigate? I'll show you how we tried doing this. So this is an overall view. This is a course view that you can go inside a course and look at things. And this is a view across courses for certain concepts or for important concepts. It worked somewhat like this, and I hope the so these are the four um, courses that we have. Each rectangle that you have is a lecture. The height of that rectangle is the, I think, the number of concepts which are there. The width of the rectangle is the time for which that lecture takes place. And the darkness of the rectangle is the relative unfamiliarity or of that particular content. So how to read this is that what you can see is that practical machine learning course is the shortest one in terms of time. Machine learning course is the longest one. Machine learning course has approximately same length of lectures, but there are many more lectures. The big data course has really short lectures and it does not discuss a lot of things because the things are short. The height of the boxes is also small. And there are not many unfamiliar things also here. Whereas practical machine learning, there is a lot of unfamiliar stuff and a lot of concepts towards the end. In general, it seems to be a more unfamiliar course, more perhaps a harder course than something like the big data course. Whereas Andrew Ng's course, you can see that it increases in difficulty, so to say, and again it increases in difficulty. So it has its own cadence of things. So one can, according to the time requirements and according to what concepts are being used, etc., one can make a choice. One can even go further in terms of finding out what each lecture is in each just by hovering over those. And as we go ahead, um, we can see. So if I click on that plus sign there, this plus sign, uh, you get the important concepts and in which lecture they're the most important. So for example, prediction is a concept that is really important in the first lecture and the third lecture. It hardly appears in the second and so on. Uh, Something like accuracy and prediction is only seen here. Here, most of the concepts, this shows how unfamiliar or familiar the concepts are. So the lighter means they are more familiar concepts. Something like database is a very familiar concept. So it's an easier course is what we can see. And a lot of information you can get out of all this kind of drilling down. You can also do things like click on a particular lecture and see how what are the important things. You can also do stuff like just hover on one particular concept. Say, for example, if I just click prediction, it shows me where it is in this particular course, and it also shows me where it appears in all these other places, all these other MOOCs. Uh, and therefore, I can compare courses and make a choice in courses, is what we thought we could do. Uh, this now, I mean, you could use this to, you could use this for textbooks also, is what we realized later. Each thing being a section or a chapter. And you could do something similar with a textbook. So anything that is linear, you could use such a way to visualize it and make decisions about it. So it would be very helpful for a place like Coursera, for example. Um, okay. We also found that when people watch online videos, they have a really short attention span. So videos which are 6 to 9 minutes in length get watched the most. This is on edX videos. So the most of those videos are get watched. The whole 6 minutes a minute get watched. Whereas as they become bigger and bigger, people watch smaller and smaller amounts of those videos. There is also this insight that people's attention span currently has gone really down, and you can see that this thing that people play with, fidget spinner, it is to control your attention span, and it actually people's attention spans are less than 8 seconds these days, as opposed to somewhere in 2000. And people are have continuous partial attention, as in they are in many worlds at the same time. They're on WhatsApp, they are in the lecture, they're on some other social media and so on. So they're used to doing many things at the same time. So given that, how do you engage people into online courses is also something that we looked at. One thing that we found is that things were getting smaller and smaller. Smaller courses like nano degree programs and nano videos giving just one concept at a time and so on were also getting starting to come. And therefore, this was the second trend that we looked at, like, will short be the new sweet? And it still persists, that trend. And therefore, we built something like this. We called it another layer, where you can give short explanations for concepts in physics, engineering, and so on. So we called those analogies. For example, if you want to know how a cell works, this is an analogy, like it's a wall around the city, etc., etc. So it's an analogy for a castle, and there is another analogy for a factory, and many such analogies are there throughout the internet. So you're looking at these. So one opportunity for personalization would be, if you are a Harry Potter fan, then you might like the one on the left. If you are interested in technology, cars, you might write one on the right. So such things could be done. So we built something called Stickipedia, an analogy search engine, where you could just put search concepts, and then it would go on the internet and automatically find where analogies were, what these analogies were. So for example, this thing says that a cloud computing is like a car. How? It's given here. This is a bigger analogy, it's a larger article. This is a really small analogy, it's a smaller article, it's easier to read also. This is more tough to read, etc. So again, we looked at analogies as a possible specialized layer which could be incorporated, just like the timeline layer. The timeline layer, we had to go to Wikipedia and do a lot of extraction from the Wikipedia automatically, from the articles, to construct a timeline layer automatically. Something similar here we tried out. Um, and we also came up with a short thing called Short is Sweet, which was a mobile application which said that for a particular concept, just give how much time you have right now. 10 minutes. Okay, so these are the learning resources that you might use. Uh, One more thing that we saw with this is that while people are only looking at 6 to 9 minutes of an educational video, they are looking at 120 minutes of a feature film. So obviously, something is better in a feature film, which is not there in educational videos. And we all know that that's the case. Typically, that's what happens. Here is how an NPTEL video typically looks. And here is how a movie typically looks. So there has to be, in the movie, has a lot of things going with it, a lot more budget than the one on the left, a storyline, a lot of ups and downs, and so on. But can you make educational videos in such a way that they give you more of a movie sense? Say, for example, this is a video about entropy. Sorry, this is a lecture about entropy. It's from NPTEL. And this is another lecture from Entropy, where they teach the concept of entropy. They also have all the equations also. I mean, those are also embedded here. So it's not that it is light, but it tackles the concept very nicely. Of course, there is more amount of money that you spend for doing something like this. But we found out that learning can be, if learning is as engaging as movies, people will do more of it. For example, we gave people these spot maps of videos to look at how these videos are looking, what is the kind of variation in them, and so on. So every single square here is an average value of a color in that particular video. So that's for a second. So every row is 1 minute. So many people just pick the first one and not the second one, and so on. So we did this kind of comparisons over a lot of videos, and found that people need distinguishing features in videos for them to latch on to stuff. What we also, people need affective content that engages them emotionally. So there, could we take this person and convert that person into this? And we started something for that, where we could take the face of a person who is teaching you, and then generate a 3D replica of that person's face, so that it can be manipulated by an actor. So first you record with uh, a teacher, and then an actor manipulates it, and it eventually, how it looks is as if the teacher is emoting a lot, and teacher is creating a lot of ups and downs in the way in which the teaching happens. So we thought of this then, and then came all the deep learning and GANs and so on. So right now also we are doing a lot of stuff with GANs, and this is one of the applications which we are trying to take forward. Speaking of GANs, so this was about 5 years ago. All that I talked about, this was about 4 years ago. Today, if you look at it, the synthetic media are splendid. They are really progressed. These are from Samsung's Neon AI, and they look like real people. There are things such as this, for example, spatials. Uh, these are VR rooms where you can take an avatar, just like what you have on the left side. These are avatars of people. These are not real people, just synthetically generated people. And on the right, you have avatars of people talking to each other on a teleconference. They can interact with each other also. So VR makes that possible. Can a classroom look like this? Um, we are working on something called Meissner bots, where we are trying to create avatars or bots which talk to you, but they will also take your facial expressions into account, and they'll sort of react to you, and they will feel much more realistic than the typical bots, is what we claim. But let's first, we're still doing that. uh, and you also have things such as wearables, for example. There is this concept called flow, where if your skills don't match your challenge levels, uh, then you either can get bored or you can get anxious about what is happening. And there is this flow channel in the middle. This gives the best things, where skill and challenge levels are slightly mismatched, and you always strive to match the challenge level by upgrading your skills. uh, Variables, it seems, can detect anxiety, they can detect boredom, and so on. So imagine the next parts of your learning material coming based on the feedback that you get from wearables, so that uh, it is actually measuring how you feel while you're learning. So all these ideas are right now in the open, and we are exploring at least three ideas of uh, out of these. Even if I'm working in media, all these come on the intersection of media and education, and we are working on these. So now, if I look back at the education work that I'm doing, I would just like to know how much time do I have? I just have a few things to say. That's all.
Now we have a question answer session at the end.
Okay, okay.
So it's a 15 to 20 minutes.
So I'll take another 5 minutes to.
Yeah, yeah,
So 5 minutes,
yeah,
10 minutes.
yeah.
Okay. So I did work on applications of AI to education for quite some time, about 4 years or so, uh, which is a large amount of time if you consider the concentration with which we were doing all these things. Uh, and if I look back, I have certain observations, and I would like to share these observations with you. One thing is that education is something called a wicked problem. Wicked problems are the problems which have all these characteristics. So Brittle and Weber in 1973 defined wicked problems. And there are wicked problems around us. Say, for example, the pandemic currently is a wicked problem. Poverty elimination is a wicked problem. Similarly, education is also a wicked problem. What are the characteristics? That problem is very unique. There is no clear problem definition in education, actually. It's very hard to define what you want in education, because there are several people thinking about several things. Uh, there are multiple causes. There are multiple scales. I can do something at a classroom, but I can't replicate it in the school. I can replicate it in a school, but not the town, and so on. And all these things are interconnected to each other. A class, coaching class, might affect how things are taught in a college, and so on. I mean, you know this much better than me, all these problems. There are multiple stakeholders, they have conflicting goals about what education should be. For example, uh, for an educational institution, making money also is a goal. Making profits is also a goal. In some cases, in the US, it is very common. Like, profit is a big goal of the big institutions. Um, for the student, sometimes learning is a goal, but that sort of clashes with having fun, having social fun as a goal. And both these are relevant goals, but they don't actually, if you try to fix one, the other goes, and so on. All these goals just collide all the time. Uh, Such a problem is connected to other wicked problems. Say, for example, poverty is connected to education. Pandemic right now is connected to education, is connected to poverty, and so on. Uh, the the solution that you make, it has different ramifications throughout the system. The solutions are never wrong, right? They're just better, worse. That's all that you know. And if you get to know how they are performing, because it takes a long time to actually evaluate a solution, and the problems are never completely solved. These are termed as wicked problems, and I realize that education is has a lot of wicked problems within it. It itself is a wicked problem, and it has a lot of wicked problems within it. For example, in a 2015 Horizon report, it talks about competing models of education. We talked to so many uh, people from academia. So recently, I had a talk with a very big university from US university. So that this lady was the innovation director of that university, and we talked about all these concepts and other concepts and so on. Her way of looking at things was really different than my way of looking at things. Her way of looking at things was very different than another dean of a university, a large university that I had talked to, and they were sure about their ways of looking at things. So these competing models of education just make it very difficult to give a generalized solution for things. And that's why whatever you come up with works in small places. It does not work. It does not scale very easily. That's what is the problem in general with a lot of education problems, is what I found. Um, we talked about a wicked problem, pandemic, and that is changing certain things. For example, we are right now working from home. I have not been, I have been to the office, but you're not supposed to be going to the office, and that might be the case for a very long time. Similarly, students are sitting at home and learning. We right now don't know how this is going to pan out, whether working from home stays for all the time, because company is essentially going to save some money out of that. Schools will also save money, the universities will also save money, but will they retain the students is a question. So they might lose money also. So right now it is at a juncture where things are out suddenly exposed and we don't know where to go. It's something similar to theater. For example, theater right now cannot be done. We are just sitting at home, and therefore there are a lot of people doing theater on Zoom, online theater. So you have the Zoom windows, the grid is there, and people do theater on that. The whole problem is that they are not, like, theater has been developed on over a number of years, and the medium of theater has been explored well. For example, there is a proscenium. Proscenium is the stage that you see here, the stage-like thing. It has its own parlance. It has its own ontology, so to say. If you are standing behind on the stage, it's called upstage and downstage, and there are wings, and there is a curtain. All these are terminologies, and these are suddenly not there if you look at the Zoom theater. You have to find your new terminologies which are aesthetic, which are important, and then do theater. People are not doing that, and they're rushing to making theater uh, on online. Is something similar happening with education? Is what I fear right now. uh, it seems slightly pessimistic, but say for example, uh, Zoom is providing a together view. This looks like a together view right now, and it could be a good thing to give uh, an experience which is close to a classroom experience. But rushing into this, is that the right thing to do? Is something that we don't know. We just have to try and find out, and that's where we are. In fact, this is the landscape of global learning right now. Each point that you see here, each little logo, is a company which has been selected to represent that landscape. So there are more companies than that. All these are big companies and startups. They look at right from knowledge and content to skills and jobs, traditional models of education, managing education, learning support, assessment, everywhere. And in that also you have subdivisions, like this is to do with knowledge, for example, open research, curriculum, resources, Q&A. In education management, you have management, environments, classroom tech, admissions, finance, and so on. So many choices are there. There are traditional models, there are new models. There are existing, say, um, practices that you have. There are a lot of familiarities. You can't replicate those familiar things online. Uh, there are so many things which are right now exposed out in the open. And therefore, a lot of research that has been done on online education and all the kind of things that people are talking about, in my opinion, no longer holds true. And it's again a time for disruption, either disruption or just a patient wait for things to go back to the way they were. They will perhaps go, they may not go. For a company like ours, we may not go to the office uh, as frequently as we used to go, for example. Whether that will happen with a college, it just remains to be seen because of this thing. It's a wicked problem, and it is difficult to right now find a solution that will fit. You might experiment and you might try out things, but it's going to be slightly a bumpy road ahead, is what I feel. And I really wanted to talk and express this with all of you. And I'm sure that you might have your different opinions and thoughts about this. But this is what I wanted to leave you with. I'm not bitter about education, obviously. I'm very, very happy to be working in education and to be related to it. And however, the way in which things stand right now, uh, it's it's likely unclear where things would go. On that rather pessimistic note, sometimes like you have a play and it's a comedy, and sometimes you have a play which looks like a tragedy. And this is not a tragedy play that I'm putting here, but I'm opening it up for you with for discussion or for questions, uh, because this is where we stand, is what I feel based on what I have seen. Again, thanks a lot for all your attention, and thanks a lot for listening patiently if you're not sleeping. But then you are also used to students sleeping on the other side. So I think that happens to, uh, I mean, that's a mutual thing. You also get to do that sometimes. So thanks again. Thanks for inviting me, Ravinder sir, and thanks for hosting me. Uh,
Thank you, sir. All participants, we are open for questions. Yes, Ghosh, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
hi, Ghosh sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Very good afternoon. I am Joydeep Ghosh from Barakpur near Kolkata.
Wow.
I have done my BTech in Electronics and Communication, then done my MBA in Banking and Finance, and has served 9 years through ICICI Bank, Tata AIA, and Shri Equipment Finance. There I have served in data coordination in Excel and all that. I have a question for you related to supply chain management. Those are related to means delivery persons who deliver the delivery companies like Zomato or Swiggy or Amazon or Flipkart or Blue Dart. How they locate through their customers' places without calling. Without calling, how can they track the customer's place? You can say that navigation, but yet how the navigation can be artificially intelligence? Is it related to artificial intelligence, or it is only Google mapping?
Okay. So it's a curious question. I think it is Google mapping, one part. Secondly, their delivery agents are given certain areas. They sometimes know which area to go to, and they sometimes even know the area to some extent. They also have the address in front of them, and they also have the geolocation that you have already shared. While you install something like Zomato, they ask you for permission to share your location, for example. And you generally, that location is shared whenever you have the app up. Whenever the app is running, your location will be shared. Um, that location, as well as the place that you have given as an address, both are used, in my opinion, because I don't know about Zomato, but I know about certain other delivery things. Uh, um, you can be located at one place, and you can be ordering or delivering at some other place. That also they take into account. Like, I place an order, but my friend gets the delivery. So
Okay, can you prescribe me any sort of algorithm for or books for scikit-learn or advanced Python, any sort of books?
So there are several books for Python.
Good.
I can leave a list in the comment section here. But there are absolutely O'Reilly books are good. Some of the O'Reilly books are good. Some of the books which are open source, they are also pretty good. What you need for Python and so on is that you need to actually be doing those things. So for example, if you want to do scikit-learn, you have to be solving those problems. And as you get a hands-on experience, you'll get better and better and better at it.
Because I am struggling to find the .csv files, the data .csv files.
Which data do you want to work with?
.csv files related to means files you can prescribe for image processing and all that.
So image processing, if you typically do image processing, you use image files. You don't use .csv files. .csv files are generally used for structured data, which is there, and that might have some unstructured data within it. But CSV is just a format which can be read by a lot of libraries of Python. Python can read it. There is a good library called Pandas, which works in something called data frames, which allows you to do certain operations pretty nicely. So they can easily read CSV type of files. So I would leave some resources in the comment section here in this call, after the call, and you can check from there.
Or my suggestion is that you can just send us the mail. We can forward it to the student.
Sure.
Because it may not be possible that
to leave it open. Sure. No
right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Next question.
Good afternoon, Niranjan sir, for your nice deliberations. This is Dr. Biswas from Central University of Jharkhand, Ranchi. So I have a questions regarding that as your area is theater, as you mentioned, that I am also having interest in that. So nowadays you can see that artificial intelligence, like this auto tuning, and then other, when dubbing you are using a lot of machines and all these things. So then what about the originality and the human, the emotions? How you will maintain the originality and human emotions? That exactly is very much challenging using of such artificial intelligence. So what do you feel? Because today in the market, you see everybody is now becoming singer because of the auto tuner, not about
Right.
the originality.
Correct, correct. So there is this concept called democratization of art. Democratization of art means everyone is an artist now. In a way, it's an, I would say, an anti-elitist version of being an artist. So artist says that I'm an elite because I'm an artist, but now someone else can also generate something and get good appreciation. TikTok example, for example, so many people do TikTok videos these days, like millions of them do TikTok videos. They get that pleasure of creating something out of those. This is democratizing making of videos, which are entertaining videos for some portion of the population. This cannot stop. What the artist can do, however, is that I'll tell you an example that we were talking to a big media company, and they said that we do all these promos. Promos are like little ads of their own programs. But the music that you use for those, we have to get these musicians to give that music, and the musicians charge us a lot, and it's all mediocre music. The music is not good enough anyway, but they just charge us a lot despite that. Do you have any automatic generation of music? So the artist part of me says that the musicians are getting their rosy roti out of that. So you should not take it away from that. That's one part. But the other part is, if someone uses it, who is going to stop? If artificial music which is produced is as good as a mediocre musician's production of music, then it is obviously going to compete with the musician. Therefore, all the artists just need to raise their game to the extent that artificial intelligence cannot compete with them. That's one part of it. The other part of it is this thought experiment that, let's say I am an actor and I acted in front of you, and I didn't tell you whether I am a fully robotic actor or I am a real human being. And you didn't find any difference. Let's assume that if that happened, would I be any less than the real actor? So it's just a thought experiment because there have been experiments on art which was generated by GANs, in specific a GAN, generative adversarial network called CGAN, creative GANs. What it did is that it tried to come up with paintings which were creative, like which were creatively different than earlier paintings. They did not replicate, but at the same time, they based themselves on earlier paintings. Whenever people looked at them, they found no difference in the paintings by humans and by AI thing. Then they were told that this was made by AI and this was made by humans. Then they started all the discrimination. The discrimination, it's in a way like caste discrimination. Just because you're born some way, you cannot discriminate. It's very similar to that we cannot discriminate against the result that is produced just because it is a machine produced results. So therefore, what I think might happen is that humans will get better at what they do. They will have to be better at what they do for AI not to take away their stuff from them. And wherever you have this concept of like my inner experience gives my art. So there is something inside me, some experience inside me, and that has produced my art. That obviously won't be there with the machines. Whether it makes the result of that different or not is the question. If the result is the same, like whatever you see, you appreciate it as much as a human, then I mean, nothing much can be done. Because we as like consumers of art, consumer is not a good word, but the receivers of art, mainly look at what that art produces. We have to also see that is the artist also part of that. If the artist is also part of that, what the artist is also very important to me. Then that art cannot be produced by machines, and then there it will stay safe. So if we want to save artists, we should also try to understand what humans the artists are. Unless you understand the human story behind an artist, the artist will be the same as a machine if they are producing the same type of results. So that way I'm siding with the art part, that while consuming art, while receiving art, you also have to look at the humans which are producing that art as a part of appreciation.
Thank you, sir. We have one more question in chat box that we are planning to go for some MOOC courses. How can we add emotive modifications in our MOOC courses?
Okay. So right now we are doing some experimentation with that. We have done stuff like taking a Charlie Chaplin speech and converting it into another language with another facial expressions and so on. So we are close to that, but we also have some sort of collaborators in IIIT Hyderabad who have come up with a splendid way of lip syncing. So if you were to dub a particular say movie in a different language, there won't be any lip syncing problem at all with the model that they have. It's called, I think, WAVGAN, if I'm not mistaken, or WAV to lip. And it's a brilliant model that they have. What we are looking at is the facial expression manipulation. When these two come together, that is where I think we'll have our emotive modifications of MOOCs. We'll have to wait till that point is what I think. So there is some, maybe it's about 6 to 8 months away yet, because the preliminary results for us are encouraging, but we still have to polish it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
I think questions are over. And
Yeah, madam, I also have one question.
yeah. Okay,
Sure.
Uh, Thanks, Niranjan sir. I am eagerly waiting for your talk, because this is the one talk where I can relate my research also.
Okay.
So, because personalized learning is my research area.
Yes.
Basically, the students' behavior in online learning, right? What kind of attribute you are thinking of? And there is a one aspect that I also little bit of confused when I started my research. There is a concept called the learning object metadata.
Right.
Lot many contents are available,
Correct.
and its metadata is available. So because I used to be having a learning style as a one of the concept,
Yeah.
where if we can able to understand the learning style of the student before we are delivering the content, then it may possible that student may learn more effectively as compared to another one. And I got good result out of that research. So can you just put your ways on this particular aspect?
Sure, I'll try to. So learning styles, learning object metadata, if we look at it, whatever we learn with, there is some additional information. So for everyone here, let's say we take a video, and that video is prescribed to us as the next learning object by a learning system. And we watch that video. What that video is, certain more things about that video, additional information about that video is called the learning object metadata. The more enriched this information is and the more usable this information is, the more you can use it for better learning, in my opinion. We are doing metadata generation for media right now. For example, all the Netflix videos that you have, I'm just giving an example. They're stored somewhere, and each one of them has certain metadata. What we are doing is that we are generating frame by frame metadata. so that we can get much more than that. Say, for example, we can get things such as where is the character introduction. If it's a sports telecast, we get places where there is an audience reaction, a place where a goal was scored, um, uh, things like that in a news thing, an interview, uh, a video footage, and so on. So that that whole learning object gets more, I would say, more informatively tagged. I think one needs to find out what should be the metadata that should be populated for different disciplines for better learning. Because a lot of times the standard metadata just doesn't help. So you have to take up an exercise in generating metadata that will really help that. For example, this one has an explanation, or this particular learning object has, say, equations inside it. For example, is a metadata which can be used in learning style. Say, for example, if a person is more familiar with mathematical type of analysis, it would help that person more. The current metadata doesn't have that really. Current metadata will have a description of the video and perhaps other things like how long it is and certain other things. But a lot can be generated around it. It's even then we thought about this, that, and right now that we are doing it for media, we can imagine a lot many uses of that metadata along with the media. And not only that, we are also using a query language on top of these annotations, which are one would say spatio-temporal annotations on the media. We use this query language on top of that. It's called Recall. It's come out of Stanford, and we use that in order to further tag stuff with which would be useful. So maybe one has to understand what kind of metadata would be really useful for learning, and then try to get that metadata. It could be either through a human exercise, manual exercise, or it could be through some sort of programmatic algorithmic exercise. But metadata not being adequate, metadata not being good enough is a typical problem even in media and also I think in online learning.
But actually what happened, there is some standard metadata is available for learning, like IEEE LOM is there.
Right.
But there also, with respect to kind of a instructional delivery or with respect to the behavioral science, there are only few taggings are available. Like whether video is interactive or whether the contents, that is small things. So whenever we are, when we are going into our research also, so what we have done, we have suggested some few tagging also, more tagging, more tagging. Because that is also one of the outcome of our research.
Absolutely.
So can it be possible that we can take that IEEE learning object metadata, because there are some environmental aspect is also there, or context is also important. And we can develop an Indian methodology for tagging this particular learning objects. Because language plays very important role.
Absolutely. Yes.
The examples given in the video or in the content also plays major role. Like for example, whenever in a 4th or 5th standard, if the names of the child in that particular video or is not correlate with the names of the child in that particular area, students are not able to relate those things over there.
Absolutely. Right.
Like you're in a rural area, you are talking about the chocolates and toffee. Instead of that, you can talk about, like, for example, guava or something like that. In Marathi, for example, chinsa, peru, that kind of things are there. Right. So in this context also, we need to do a kind of a, what you can say that maybe a theoretical research, but it is required. I thought that, because for
some of the stuff that we are doing right now, it is to do with ads. We do the same thing with ads.
Right.
Where an ad which has been produced in one place how can you take that ad to some other place without reshooting that ad with other people and so on.
Okay. Okay.
You would have to make changes like this only, like Chinsa
Okay.
Peru, as you said. Those
Right.
kind of changes would be required, and you would also require maybe an accent, difference in accent, and so on.
Right.
So we are trying to see whether we can. This is called localization.
Right.
Whether we can localize automatically is what we are trying to see.
Right.
I don't see why some of the principles might not, why they won't be useful for educational videos,
Right.
or videos or content, let's say. Um, because I think now in media, I can look at everything as content. And what I am able to see is that content is used for different purposes. And you need to make, we call it intelligent media. We need to make the media intelligent enough to be used in a particular way.
Right.
So in a way, it's an intelligent media problem only with education. So perhaps there is some overlap with respect to that, and we can discuss it offline
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. We will definitely work on them. Find out a research problem and work on
Problem.
that.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think there are no questions. So we are at the end of the session. On behalf of Team IMCC and all the participants, we all sincerely thank Niranjan Pednekar sir for accepting our invitation and delivering the talk. We look forward to connect with you, sir, again in our future events.
Sure.
I would also like to thank all the participants for enthusiastically and actively attending all the sessions today. Now we'll conclude the session by taking the photograph. So I would like to request everyone to